Okay, hello everybody, and I don't know if anybody's going to show up tonight, but the reason I do this is so that I have an audio archive. What I'm going to be doing tonight is basically going over some recent developments and also explaining a couple things that had to do with Timothy over the past few days. Now, as right now, Mr. Homestead has not been caught. He is on the run. We don't have too much of an idea where he is, and why isn't my slideshow working? Well, it's not working on my preview, but it's working on the transmission, so that's better than anything. And I've got Rebecca, who is saying hello. Hello, Rebecca. Now, what? See, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to do this. Montagues, or October Rains, uses several names, went through and read a majority of the order for protection that Kim had put up. And when his reading and the documents go into a great deal of detail of how Tim and Kim wound up being basically together, and not really together, but just they somehow merged, and Tim made her life a living hell. He made my life a living hell, and a number of other people's lives were living hell, and I'm hoping I got the mic on. This is going to be something of a sloppy stream because I thought I had the bugs worked out, and I didn't because I changed computers. Yeah, mic's working. But the only thing I can figure I can do at this point is discuss just how my involvement with Tim Homestead came about. Back in 2008, I was live streaming the Casey Anthony case. Now, Casey Anthony was a young mother who just one day came into the limelight because her mother reported her missing, and excuse me, I'm getting something to eat brought into me right in the middle of my webcast. Excuse me again. So, anyway, getting back to the story. Casey Anthony came home one night, and her and her mother got into a little bit of a fight. Series of phone calls to the police department continued. Cindy Andy, on the first phone call, Anthony wanted to have her daughter prosecuted for using her credit card, and that didn't work out so well because the mother decided that wasn't such a good idea, so they didn't do that. And then later on, another phone call was made, and this time it was the daughter was missing, or the grandchild was missing, daughter/grandchild, because Kaylee Anthony was the granddaughter of Cindy Anthony, the mother. And basically that was the start of a very complicated case that came into being. Around this time I had been experimenting with some technology associated with a business of mine. I used to go to dealer auctions, and the dealer auctions were all over the state of Florida. The dealership that I owned was headquartered in Palatka, Florida, and instead of doing things all the way, like getting on the phone, talking back and forth with my manager and buyer up there as to what we should be putting in inventory at our two locations, I decided to devise a way where we could stream excuse me, I'm doing a couple things here. I'm trying to get set up. This unfortunately is being a bit of a sloppy presentation, but at the same time, not having a big audience is helping me get things in progress here. I got notified that I have something in, okay, I'm going into Twitter. Okay, Smoke has liked my tweet. Now, I'm going to type something. Okay, sent out a message on my Twitter in case there's people that feel like tuning in on this thing. I think for the heck of it, what I'm going to do, let's see. Let me fire up my other computer here. Because I'm going to put this one. Anyway, so the Casey Anthony case became something of a sensation. And because of this little experiment that I had done with my dealership, going to the different auctions all over the state, and I would live stream back to the office. And live streaming in 2008 was rare. And what I would basically do is I had a laptop, and I had a Sire modem on it, because Wi-Fi in those days wasn't that easy to get. You could get it, but it wasn't that easy. And I would take my webcam, and I would point the webcam at the cars that were being auctioned live, and my buyer would watch this on his computer, and then we would talk by phone, and he would tell me, yes, bid on that, don't bid on that, the price is getting a little steep, and that sort of thing. So we were able to keep our heads together as far as what was going to go into inventory and what we were going to purchase and so forth. Okay. What I'm trying to do, I'm going to try to what I'm doing is I've gotten on YouTube on my big computer. I've got kind of an odd setup here, and if people don't mind, I'm going to tune in to one of my favorite people. Okay, 20 hours, 1 week, 2 weeks. Okay. Agent 19 hasn't done anything new yet. Rebecca did something that I played earlier to myself, and that had to do with David, who is something of a character. Let's see what TP's done. Okay. LARP Nation, the PSYOP. And the only problem is this is, I cannot figure out yet how to stream video on this current setup I got. So everything is audio. So let me... Before that... Who the hell is this? LARP Nation. Okay, that's not what I thought it was. Okay, Excalibur, I'm not gonna... Let me go back. Oh, that was weird. I got all the... Okay, let's see if Monograph has done anything. 20 hours ago, 2 days ago. Yeah, everybody seems to be taking the day off today. So, oh, go down to Glow. Do. Elia Priest. Oh, I've heard some about who this is supposed to be. This is another one of these people. But alright, I'm going to get back on subject. Now, Timothy Holmseth did not follow the Kaylee Anthony case as far as I know. He didn't get involved until the Haley Cummings case. And the way this worked out was that in February, I believe it was February of 2009, when Haley Cummings went missing. Now, the interesting thing about this case is this was while Kaylee Anthony had been found. Kaylee Anthony had been was only like 3 miles from the house, so they were in the process of doing all the pre-trial stuff, because they had all kinds of charges against the mother. And right in the middle of all this, his child disappears in Samsula, Florida. Now, by the strangest coincidence, Samsula is about 15 minutes from my dealership. It's the next town south of Palatka. It's a lot of people that live in Samsula actually work in Palatka and farther north into Jacksonville, and some go over east to St. Augustine, because it's a very small town. It's quite rural. And Samsula is like every other town in the United States, in that they had their share of crime and so forth. You know, they people use drugs, smoke pot, use the hard stuff and all that, so it's not unusual for people to get into trouble. And so 3 o'clock in the morning, this teenage girl calls the police department and says their 5-year-old daughter with a boyfriend is missing. And much like the Casey Anthony case, things got a little strange, because in the middle of the phone call, when the stepmother is talking to the cops, the biological father of the child and the biological father and the boyfriend of the girl comes home. In the middle of the conversation, he hears this exchange between the teenage babysitter slash girlfriend and 911. And the father immediately goes into a blow up and starts saying, I know who did it, I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing. And he gets on the phone. And by the end of the gist of all this is this became one of the high-profile cases in Florida, because this 5-year-old girl goes missing under weird circumstances. It's a stepson, or it's a stepmother, or not even a stepmother, because they weren't married. She was basically a live-in girlfriend. I believe she was like 16 years old, and she's watching all these kids. And they weren't exactly well-to-do. The mattresses were in a center bedroom on the floor, and she and the children slept in the same room. The children had their own mattresses, and so everybody was sleeping on the floor with these mattresses. So all these little tidbits started filtering out to mainstream media, and this story became just as sensational as the Caylee Anthony disappearance and subsequent death. And quite normally, all these people, both on the internet, the armchair detectives, started descending upon this case, and as a coincidence, since I had a business in that county and my dealership was only 15 minutes away, I lived down in Claremont at the time, or not Claremont, I lived just outside of Apopka, Florida. And I was exactly 2 hours from Samsula. It was 2 hours, 15 minutes to 2 hours and 20 minutes from my dealership. And so I was in Palatka a lot. And I also knew a lot of the law enforcement up there, because when you're a car dealer, you and law enforcement intermingle, because they do checks to make sure that certain things are okay and so forth. So anyway, I was always interactive with law enforcement up there, and in a professional sense. As a matter of fact, my dealership was only 1.5 miles from county sheriff's office. So anyway, as things got going, Kim, who was a lawyer down at Fort Lauderdale, she does family law, was asked by a friend of hers if she would come up and help the mother out, the biological mother, because the biological mother and the biological father were divorced. And so there was a situation where the biological mother wanted custody of the remaining children. And so a friend of Kim's asked her if she would come up there and represent the biological mother. And Kim did. She represented the mother pro bono. And she also acted as a media spokesman for the not only the biological mother, but I guess she also got involved with, I think, being a mediary of well, she also talked with the step mother / girlfriend. Now, apparently Tim Homseth, and you can go back to the documents to read specifically how, contacted Stubbs, who is a kind of an interesting character, and he was working with Kim on the case, and so through him, Tim contacted both him and her with some kind of eye movement analysis, which he is not trained in any way, shape, or form. And so he started bugging. He started bugging Kim. He started bugging everybody in the county. And at that point, I hadn't gotten on Homeseth's radar, and I really hadn't been on Kim's either. I didn't get associated with Kim until quite a bit later. It would probably be two to 3 weeks before Kim and I started to come across each other's radar, and it was rather interesting how it happened. There was a blogger who went by radio. She had a blog, Radio News .net or something like that. It was Radio News, and ended with a Z instead of an S. And she was going after Tim Homseth on her blog. I mean, she was really going after him. And Radio and I were not getting along. We never did get along, because she was after me too. And so I thought, well, if Radio was going after Timothy Homseth the way Radio was going after me, then Timothy Homseth might be getting a bum rap. And so I started writing about it, and I actually, for a brief time, defended Timothy Homseth because I saw the same kind of stuff being written about Tim that was being written about me, and I just assumed that, something shady's going on here. It wasn't until I started doing some research. I was starting to see the back and forth between Homseth and Kim going on the internet, and I soon found myself on his mailing list, but in a rather strange, convoluted way. People were picking up on the argument that I was having with this Radio person, and since Radio was an enemy of Tim Homseth, and Radio was a friend of Kim at the time, and I was an enemy of Radio, I don't know if I repeated myself, they decided to come to me as an ally, and I was starting to get all kinds of information on Kim, and it wasn't good. And all these female accounts kept sending me this information, and it was mainly gossip, and they wanted me to get involved with them, writing various networks and so forth to say that, the CNN was the big one. CNN shouldn't be associating with this woman. She's doing all this shady stuff. They didn't get into the really outlandish stuff until much later. It was started out that there was a lot of the gossip about sexual innuendos and improper conduct and suspicions of money being stolen out of a charity and so forth. And and unfortunately, because of my little spat with radio, I got increasingly involved in the situation until I started getting contacted by another source. And the source told me that before I went any farther with Timothy Holmseth, I might want to start looking into some court records. And apparently by the time this little battle had escalated, the paperwork had started to be filed against Tim Holmseth, demanding that he quit bothering Kim and some other people. Apparently there was a woman up in Palatka that also got tired of Holmseth, and she filed her own paperwork against him. So we had paperwork starting to build up on Holmseth that didn't look very good. And I said, wait a minute, something's not right here. And eventually, I hope this chomping isn't getting out on the air. I'm trying to eat and webcast at the same time. It's not really a good thing to be doing, but I'm hungry. Anyhow, I was contacted by a third party who turned out to be radio that said I should speak to Kim directly, and would I be willing to do so, and I said yes. And eventually me and Kim started talking on the phone. Now, Kim ain't gonna like this, but when you talk to Kim on the phone, you are listening to Kim on the phone. Kim likes to dominate the conversation, which I got used to, but you get Kim on the phone, you might as well just shut up and listen. That was the funniest thing about Kim. Anyway, we had some rather lengthy phone calls, and she went into explicit detail exactly what Timothy had been done, and it was almost like reading the documents that are published on the internet right now verbatim, because she went over all the harassment Timothy had been doing and everything he had done. And I listened politely, and I began to get concerned that I had got myself in the middle of something that was going to turn into a can of worms. Well, after we said our goodbyes, I called my contacts up in Palatka. And I asked them, I said, what in the hell is going on up there? I said, there's this guy by the name of Timothy Holmseth, and I barely got his name out of my mouth, and my friend said, I'll stop you right there, I guess. And said, let me tell you about Timothy Holmseth. And that turned into a 2-hour conversation. Because Timothy Holmseth had been inundating the sheriff's department with emails, telephone calls, tips, you name it, they were getting it. And they were not happy. They said, this guy is tying us up day in and day out. We're trying to do a case here, and he's calling up with all these wild theories, and he seems to have a fixation on the attorney from Florida. He's called up, made all kinds of accusations. He says that the child is alive, that the woman kidnapped the child and has the child holed up someplace. Georgia came up, Tennessee came up. Kelly was being sold into sex trafficking, satanic ritual abuse, all kinds of weird things. So right off the bat, I said, well, thank you for that. I said, that's basically going to put the brakes on what I've been doing. And so I immediately changed the tone of my blogs, and I said, I said, Timothy Homeseth isn't all he's cracked up to be. And I quit defending him. I continued with the Kelly Anthony case because that was my emphasis. I really hadn't planned on getting involved with live streaming or doing anything with the Hallie Cummings case because I didn't have the time. I had a business to run. And so I went about running my business, and I was also having my problems with radio and a group of people who were her supporters are giving me a little bit of a rough time. Seems to be the nature of the internet anymore. But so I was dealing with that, and the months went on, and I kept getting these notifications from these female supporters of Timothy Homeseth. One lady in particular lived down in Virginia, and she was the general manager or co-owner of a franchise pizza company, Pizza Hut franchise. And she was determined to find out who radio was. She was determined to go after Kim, and she was determined to go after Levi Page, who was an up-and-coming young man who was appearing on CNN quite a bit, HLN actually, as a social media spokesman or whatever. And Nancy Grace and him would talk about the details of the case, and he would offer his insight and his opinion and so forth. And apparently Timothy Homeseth didn't like the guy. I'm not sure what set him off. But the next thing you know, Tim Homeseth and Levi Page were having a pissing match on Twitter. And it got to the point of ridiculousness, but I just kind of sat back and watched the whole thing. Unfortunately for me, because of a perception that I was somehow coming to Homeseth's defense, and I couldn't figure out, and I wouldn't know for a couple of years why, but I was starting to be targeted by the same people that were targeting Tim Homeseth. I find myself constantly being accused of things, helping Homeseth out, giving tips to him. Got into saying that I was making all kinds of sock accounts, or I was spreading propaganda through these sock accounts, which I wasn't doing because, number one, I didn't know how to do it. It took me almost a year to figure out how everybody was doing all this stuff. And eventually we found out who the real culprit was. So as time went on, we had our little battles, and and Kim and I got into some really bad arguments. I mean, I cursed her out and told her, I don't back down from a fight, and neither does Kim, but I think she was surprised to find that a truck driver and used car dealer from Central Florida wasn't going to put up with this nonsense that was going on the internet and these blogs. And so her and I went back and forth, and she was accusing me of some really strange stuff, and I said, hold on. I said, you're telling me that I've got these accounts and you're tracking them back to a number in Orlando. And I said, that ain't me. And I said, you're a lawyer, and if you take me to court and try to declare that that's my number, I ain't gonna cut it. Because I can prove to you that's not my number. I don't know who the hell's doing this stuff, but it isn't me. I said, somebody's playing games. And so sure enough, about 6 months later, Actually, yeah, it was between 6 months and a year. Without telling me, Kim had gotten suspicious that someone was playing all of us against each other, that they were using our disputes that we've had with each other over the years to play off against each other. And I had also been working with a group and some people I knew out in Colorado to track down this information. Our main goal was to figure out who and how radio was, and also who was behind all this chicanery that was going on the internet, especially all these female Twitter accounts that would come and go and would basically be repeating the same information and wanting the same thing. They wanted to destroy Kim, and they wanted to destroy Levi. Those were the two main targets of all these people. Eventually, it was found out that radionews.net had been behind almost everything that was going on. She had created a multitude of personalities on the internet, and it got to the extent where this radio person was making a spreadsheet, and she would keep track of all these characters she created. She created biographies of everybody that she created, had all the contact information, the various emails and so forth that she had made in order to generate all these Twitter accounts. And so she was keeping everything up and running. So, once we established that radio was responsible for setting up all these sock accounts and playing everybody against each other, we all had an online meeting, and we said, and basically what was decided is that we would agree to disagree because we still had issues with each other, but that the war between each other was going to stop, and we weren't going to allow anybody to interfere with us and play these mind games. And so that's what we did. The radio person got mad, threw a tantrum, did a couple tweets, or did a couple articles on our blog, and so on and so forth. And with a very short period of time, someone came out and said, "Look, we know who you are, and if you don't cut it out, we're going to put it all on the internet, and you're going to be doxxed," which is basically putting up all kinds of information about somebody that's public, and so everybody knows who you are. And it reached a point where that was necessary. Her information was put on the internet, and when she disappeared, her blog was taken down, her Twitter account basically remained dormant, and she disappeared. And so radio was gone. That problem was out of the way, and all of us who had been enemies all these years started to become good friends. And I actually got involved in a Kentucky case of a hacker, and I live streamed several trials that I went to where he was eventually found guilty of wire fraud, or not wire fraud, but basically being the mastermind of this hack into a football sports team, and he was put into prison. He served a couple of years, came out, decided to violate the terms of his probation, and he went back to jail again. And I don't know if he's in jail to this day because they were, but he was a real character. Well, I came to find out that him and Timothy Holmseth had been in contact with each other, because Timothy Holmseth was determined to get information on Kim and all these other people because he was mad at everybody. That's his nature. And so when I found out about that, I started doing the research and I began to see that some of the female names that Tim Holmesworth was using to talk to Derek Lassiter were the same ones that he was using to talk to me. So it turns out that not only radio was doing this kind of stuff, but so was Derek. And so I started looking into Holmesworth a little bit closer. And I noticed some interesting things about Holmesworth. Number one, in all of his blogs and videos, or well, most of the time in his blogs anyway, and some videos, Holmesworth talks in the third person. And basically, what a third person is somebody that talks about themselves as if they're somebody else. Instead of saying, I did this, or I wrote this, it's, he wrote this, or Timothy Holmesworth did this, Timothy Holmesworth is this investigator. He would reverse it to where he's not Timothy Holmesworth, he's somebody talking about Timothy Holmesworth. And then this comes important down the road. But Timothy also had some interesting habits. Timothy liked to sing. And so Timothy Holmesworth wrote some songs. And he would sing these songs. But he wouldn't sing them in his own voice. I've heard Timothy sing in his own voice. And his, because if anybody that's listened to Timothy Holmesworth would understand what he sounds like when he's singing. And he started doing one song in particular. He did about one of these mega church guys that was going around and taking the donations from the church and buying jet aircraft, excuse me, and stuff like that. So Timothy was buying, saying this guy, super fake preacher guy was buying all these jets and limousines and big houses and all that. And he took a song that was written by Johnny Cash, and he rewrote it to this particular, basically singing his gripe with his minister. And when I heard it, it was in Johnny Cash's voice, or pretty close to it. And if you weren't careful, you would think that Johnny Cash had written the song and sang it. The only problem, Johnny Cash is dead, so Johnny Cash couldn't have written the song. And next thing that happened is that Holmesworth did some, I don't know if it was a video or a commentary, but there was a woman doing a narration, and I listened to that, and just out of curiosity, and this was back when Tim Holmesworth allowed me to see his Facebook page, and I asked him, and I said, Tim, what did you use to make that video? And he blurted out the name of the program, and the program is a rather sophisticated voice emulator. And what the voice it's a text-to-speech in this particular case, and all you do is you type it out. You type out what you want to say on this particular software, and you play it back, and the woman speaks the text. And there are some of these programs that are quite rudimentary, that if you listen to them, they sound robotic. And shortly after that, he did another one, and that was very realistic. Unfortunately for me, by that time, Timothy had got tired of me, and he blocked me on his Facebook page. So I couldn't read his Facebook page anymore. And so what I had to do is I had to turn to a friend of mine who is an expert on certain things and have him analyze the software. And he told me, he says, well, what this is something new that was developed. And what you do is you get the software, you talk to it, and it learns your voice. And then what it does is you can go down through a menu and you can pick out what you want to be. Do you want to be a man? You want to be a woman? You want to and you can even be different nationalities. You can be someone from Asia. You can be someone from England, from Great Britain. You can be a German woman, and all you do is you talk, and you don't have to do text to speech this time. What you do is you literally talk through it, and this voice comes out as this British woman. And he only did this once, but it was quite remarkable because it sounded like he had hired a woman, or had gotten associated with a woman, and she was saying things about Tim on his behalf, because again, this was in the third person. But he never used that again. I think the main reason is he got booted off YouTube, and all the videos went with it. And these two were among the videos that disappeared. So, and stupid old me, I didn't record them. Other people did. There's people out there that have archived every single solitary thing that Tim has done since day one. But I cannot get the material I need off these people, so I basically have to go on my own on that. And so anyway, he continued on. It got to a point where everybody was losing patience with Holmseth because he was violating his court order. And so Kim and law enforcement in Minnesota and Florida had basically a back and forth, and they decided they were going to pick Holmseth up on a warrant for violating this injunction. And so he was summarily arrested, and the charges that everybody's aware of were made. Now I'm going to intercede something here. See, people don't understand how the state of Florida works when it comes to orders for protection. Because everybody thinks that this is, a family thing and so forth. And technically it is, but for whatever reason, Florida puts these orders for protections under the Department of Children and Families. Normally when two adults are having this problem where you've got maybe somebody from a dating service is stalking you, you want nothing to do with them, so you go to court and say, I want to get a restraining order or non-contact order and so forth, and keep this guy away from me. And all the court does is that the person goes to court and says, I want this person to leave me alone. They send you a piece of paper that says leave the person alone, and that's the end of it. There's no domestic thing. It's simply a civil. It's a civil court order. End of story. Florida, for whatever reason, puts it in this division. It's the same thing, it's just in that particular court. It's just as valid. So it's none of this domestic abuse thing like you would think about a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, what have you. This is simply an individual that's stalking, and instead of having it in the general court docket, they put it over in the family court. Different states do different things, but it's not a fake court or any of that, which Tim loves to have people believe. It's done every day, and it's done in Florida, and it's done in other courts that have this particular setup. It just depends on where they decide to put the bureaucracy. So, so Tim gets arrested on his first charge, and that was a fiasco. But he was tried, convicted, went to jail, served his time. Violated and got into trouble, so he had, I don't know if he went back and served additional time. I think he did. I know Derek Lassiter served additional time because he screwed up, so I think, but I'm not sure if Holmes said the same thing. But Holmseth is one of these that just isn't going to be, he's not going to do what he's told, and he's certainly not going to follow the rules. So he went on to do the same thing all over again. and he started saying some strange stuff. He's got this little Ford Escort or Ford Focus or whatever the hell it is that he does this pizza delivery in. On the slideshow, it's that little blue car in the background. And one day it was parked behind his apartment, and somebody just, and he claimed he came out and somebody punctured all the tires. And he went down to the local police department and filed a report and said somebody punctured all his tires. Well, I'm a guy, I know cars. And number two, I almost own a dealership. And it's on or it used to be on Highway, the Ocala office before it closed. It was on Highway 301 in Ocala. And every once in a while, someone would decide to take a knife and poke out the tires of one of my cars. Usually it's somebody that either got the car repossessed, which only happened a couple times, or somebody decided that to get mad at me because we couldn't finance it for one reason or another. So they would puncture the tire in the car. But they always did it on the outside of the car. Now Homestead put up he put up this picture of his tire. And anybody that knows anything about cars would know that you cannot reverse the rims of a standard car. In other words, the rim of the tire and the car and everything is in a shape where it can only go on one way. And that is, it goes on so that it goes over the top of the brake drum, or the calipers of the disc brakes, and it's inside the fender wall of the car. In the Homestead's case, somebody had, according to him, knifed the tire about 5 times because you see in the picture the tire changer at the tire shop had drawn little circles around where all the holes are, and there's like 5 or 6 holes on the inside sidewall tire of this car. Now, this is a Ford Focus. It's about half. If you see the SUV here from the Polk County Sheriff's Department, it's an SUV. It's high off the ground. Tim's car is not like that. It's low. Now, Tim is fairly short. If you notice the window and how it meets him, the car is low to the ground. And he probably hadn't replaced this McPherson struts, which makes the car even go low. So you can imagine that if somebody wanted to knife his car, they're going to have to get on the ground, crawl into the car, puncture all these tires, put 5 or 6 holes in the tire, and then get the hell out of there before the car comes down and crushes them. Ain't gonna happen. I even wrote about it. If you ever go over to one of my blogs, from the desk of MURTWITNESSONELIVE Live, I actually wrote about what the story that Tim Holmes has told can't happen. Because the person's either the person's a midget, the person has arms that are 8 feet long, or he's got extraordinary reflexes to crawl underneath a car, puncture the tire, and get out from under it before the car settles down on his ass. So that's not going to happen. Next thing we have is, so Tim got all pissed off about that. He actually went down, he recorded, which the words of the police department is that Tim records everything, and he does. Tim goes down, reports this. Basically, it's a false police report. Writes about it on his blog, says somebody's trying to kill him. They're going to let the air out of your tire. That's supposed to, I don't know how that's going to kill somebody unless it's just to, intimidate them or something. I don't know what excuse he used for having this flat tire. So, he went into detail about how he drove the car with a flat tire down to the gas station. He put air in it, drive it, and the air would go down. Well, I guarantee you, with 5 holes in the side of a tire, if you put the air in the tire, that car ain't gonna roll. You're gonna destroy the tire. It's gonna be ripped to shreds. The tire, if you take a close look at it, didn't roll very far. So there wasn't the kind of damage that you could do to a tire. Now, at the time he made this accusation about the tire, I actually I had a Ford Taurus, which is a larger car, and it's a little higher off the ground. It's not very big, but it's not much bigger, but it's bigger than this thing he had. And, I demonstrated how there was no way on God's green earth that somebody was going to take a knife, go underneath the car, and poke 5 holes in the tire. And I took an old bald tire that I had on another car. It wasn't mounted on the car, but I flipped the thing. I put the tire on the side. I took a knife and I poked it, and the first thing it did, I thought the thing was going to explode. It was a loud boom, and the air just went. And so the tire was halfway flat, and I hit it, and I tried to put even the second hole in the tire, and I was using a pretty damn sharp knife, and it wouldn't go in because the sidewall had gotten soft enough to where it was resisting the knife. And another thing that people don't realize is that car tires are radial tires, and it's not an easy thing to stick a knife in a tire. So I'm a little puzzled as to how he was able to get 5 holes in the car, unless he went through the nearby construction site, where there was a lot of stuff in the road, and he probably ran over the stuff, and that's how he got all these holes in the tire. But since I didn't personally go to the town, I was just made aware that there was construction going on in the area, and he may have run over it. So it's either that or somehow he just took a knife and decided he was going to play drama. This brings us to another thing that Holmseth did. He wrote a blog where he took a picture of his rearview mirror in his car. Same car. And rearview mirror is dangling, and the rearview mirror is one of these rearview mirrors where the reading light is built into the bottom of the mirror, because that was the only thing keeping the mirror from falling on the floor. And I actually went and found the same make and year model as his car, and I looked at it and I said, yeah, that's exactly what it is. And it was hanging down, and he said that somebody allegedly entered his car, pulled the mirror down, and was going to hide drugs in the car, but apparently somebody must have seen him and scared him off, because he came out to go to work, and here's the mirror hanging down. Well, a little problem with that story. First of all, unless Holmseth is stupid enough not to lock his car, somebody would have to jimmy the lock, get in the car, in the apartment complex parking lot where you got all these lights showing up. Get in the car, pull the mirror down, put the drugs in behind the mirror, and put it back up. The problem is the mirror is bolted to the headliner of the car. So in order to get in behind the mirror, you got to take a Phillips screwdriver and take the screws out and pull the mirror down in order to get up in there and put in these drugs. That's kind of a convoluted way to do it, so you figure, even an expert, open the door, get in the car, take the mirror, pull it down, take the drugs, put it in behind the mirror, put the mirror back, and bolt it back up again. And then somebody's supposed to make an anonymous call to the police department, come out to his car, and somehow find those drugs in this mirror that's been bolted back in place. Well, that's kind of a convoluted way of doing something. I've seen, I don't know how many TV shows I've seen and how many cases that I've read where the cops have been accused of planting the drugs in the car. And so, all you do, there's probably 10,000 places in a car to hide drugs. I don't know if people realize it, but in a low dollar sedan, the dashboard on the car is not completely enclosed. There's open areas underneath the dashboard. You can take, in a matter of a few seconds, if you've got, say, a bag full of pot or something, you can reach in underneath, and you can take your hand, reach in over the back of the dashboard, and just put the bag up in there, and all the wires and stuff like that will keep the bag from falling back down, and it'll be nice and hidden. Now, the problem with that, of course, is every cop in the country knows where to look, and they'll find it. Now, yes, if someone would go through the trouble of putting drugs behind the mirror of a car and putting it back together, and they could get out of there before they could be seen in a fully lighted parking lot of an apartment with a business that's open 24 hours next door, then come back with a dog, have the dog sniff around and bark, and then you got probable cause to go into the car. So you can do it that way. There's places to hide drugs where you don't even have to go in the car. You could crawl under the car, throw it up in over the leaf springs, all kind of little crevices on the underbody of the car where you could put any number of things under there if you wanted to frame somebody for having drugs. You certainly aren't going to go through this stupid process of breaking into the car, taking the car apart, putting the drugs in, and then putting the car back together again and going on your merry way. So that was stupid. But what he did, he said, well, this has cost me a day's work and everything. I need money to buy a new tire. So he got donations to pay for a new tire, which was kind of nice. But this isn't the first time he's asked for donation. There's a couple times where he did that. I think he wanted to, somehow he got money to go down and see his daughter and go to Noah's Ark and kind of see. He goes all that first, spend all that money to look at a fake ark. But if you want to spend good money, it's kind of like Disney World for an ark. I'll tell you, he took a picture of himself in front of this ark. It's funny, I noticed something about my slideshow I've got up here. It's going running and running and running. The next time his car comes up, he's got something stuck in the window, and I guarantee he's probably got a back window that doesn't work, and he's got that thing in there to keep the window from coming down. That's a lot of these cars that either are crank windows or the electric windows, the sealant that holds the window in place comes loose, and the next thing you know, your window falls down. And it looks like that's what he's done. He's got something stuck in the window. And here's the picture, and it's right next to the O. There just seems to be something there that's probably holding that window in place. Car's a piece of crap. Oh, I know what it was. He had something happen to the car, and he had to rent a car. And so he's asking for donations to get his car fixed, and it was a pretty good amount of money. It was a couple $1,000s. And this is for a car that I can pick these cars up every day at the auction for $200-300 and put them on the lot for $1,000. And so he said he needed a pretty good sizable amount of money to fix his car so he could go back to work. So there was donations for that. And of course, he had his quote-unquote professional website that he needed to keep up and running, so he was always asking for money for that, and so you had the donation site for that. But there's another picture of the car, and that thing shows up clearly, so I don't know what he's done. It's kind of it's a little bit different way of holding the window up. I've seen people take screwdrivers and wedge them in there, but they do it from the inside instead of the outside, because you put it in the outside, all someone has to do is yank that thing out of there and the window's going to fall down and they can get in the car. So that didn't work. So that was that. But now we fast forward to the events leading up to the court, and I gotta take a quick break here, so if you'll excuse me, I'll be back. You can watch the slideshow, and I will be right back. Alright, I'm back. I hope I'm transmitting. But anyway, so we get to the events now where we're close to the hearing. There had been a lot of stuffed into the courts. Homestead did his best to delay the proceedings for months. He kept filing all kinds of weird motions and stuff. But eventually, they decided, look, here we're gonna, August 26th is it. We're gonna go to. You're gonna have your trial. At some point in all this, Tim Holmseth sued Kim, me, and some woman from Virginia. And I, for the life of me, couldn't figure out why the hell he was suing me. Until I got my hands on the brief. And it turns out that there is a petition that somebody put up on Facebook. And apparently it was this woman from Virginia. And everybody signed it, including me. And so I got sued because I signed a petition. And he inundated the court with all this crap that he alleges that, he got into the same nonsense about Kim doing all this stuff, and he got into me because I simply defended myself on the internet. He basically claimed I was a pedophile. He came up with some weird chat that had been dismissed by law enforcement years ago, and the person behind that chat actually confessed to it. But we wound up getting sued, and what is funny about it is the attorney that represented Homeseth is the same attorney that is representing Devin Nunes, a Republican from California, who is suing an internet cow. Devin's cow. And he's also suing Twitter. And this is what this attorney does. He goes around harassing bloggers and sues them. And he just thought he hit a gold mine with Homeseth and me, and I don't know why he's like, I'm on Social Security. I don't have 2 cents to rub together. I got enough money to do a couple things, and that's about it. But, and I don't monetize anything. You're not going to see me up on Patreon or PayPal asking for donations. I don't feel like it. I don't need, I don't feel Sarah Westfall is one of these conspiracy theorists, and for whatever reason she got tied up with him and did some interviews and stuff, but like Monty was saying in his monologue, she didn't do her homework. And I don't think there's ever been a follow-up since that nonsense that she put out there. But it brought, the one thing it did when he got involved with Westfall is it made him famous, because everybody, that's apparently how Field McConnell and this clown from Alaska got hooked up to him, because she decided. And the thing of it is Homeseth is big on Trump, and so is Westfall. I mean, that's this ultra-right wing that, has their thing against Hillary Clinton and every Democrat on the planet, so they come up with all this crap. And Westfall just jumped on the bandwagon, because that's what she does. I don't know what she's the professor of, but maybe the professor is stupid. I don't know. Anyway, and sorry, I hadn't been paying attention to the chat, or I would have answered that before. But anyway, so I have this big lawsuit, and I'm sitting there trying to figure out how the hell I'm going to pay for the defense, because I'm absolutely broke. And I'm starting to read material, because I figure, now I'm going to have to go pro C, and I'm doing research to find out how much it's going to cost. It would have cost me $10,000 if this thing had gone to court, and I don't have $10,000. And as luck would have it, Kim got the whole thing transferred to the state of Florida, because both Kim and I live in the state of Florida. We have nothing to do with the state of Virginia. We don't even know who this woman was that started this petition. And so we said, well, if you want to sue Kim and I, you're going to have to come to Florida to do it, because I can't. I'm on Social Security. I can't afford to go 1,000 miles to a court in the middle of nowhere to answer this lawsuit. At the time, I didn't have a car that could drive out the city limits, let alone drive all the way up to Virginia. I was a beat-up old Taurus, and it was, I was having all kinds of problems with the car. Business, I don't know if it was business or not, because I didn't pay attention to the Westfall situation all that month. I kind of went through everything she said about Tim, and I said, well, this is just baloney. She does this to try and get content for her show, just like any interview anyone in that line of work's going to do. They're going to get someone on there to build up their material, try and build up their audience and revenue and all that. So it may have been a business, but that's the one thing about all these blogs and broadcast media and social media. These are businesses. These people aren't there for anything other than to make money. Now, they're either going to make money through monetizing their website, so that about every 15 minutes or so you're going to see a 3-second commercial pop up on your thing, and then it goes away and you're back in business again. That's how YouTube justifies having this channel or any other channel on their website. they advertise. And they also suck information out of anybody that logs onto YouTube, and they sell the information. And that's why you get spam. So there's that. But anyway, so the lawsuit gets dismissed. You know, of course, HomeSat isn't too happy about that or anything, so. But at least I'm off the hook. I don't have to worry about getting sued again, at least for now. You know, because I was really fretting that one. I lost a lot of sleep and everything, wondering how the hell I'm going to get this case dismissed, and it just got dismissed, and it, for the main reason is the lawyer that represented Tim Homeseth and also represented this clown out in California can't practice law outside the state of Virginia. He's not a member of any bar. He would have to come down to the state of Florida and register with the Florida Bar Association in order to do any business down here. So that fell apart. And at some point, I believe it was about a year ago, Tim Homeseth met up with all these QAnon people. The Field McConnell, he's met up with this Carrot Top up in Alaska and a couple of other people. And, you know, it was all big, one big happy family because they all believed the same thing. Field McConnell is into this Children's Crusade thing. This Alaskan guy is basically into the same thing, and they do their thing. And there's several others out there, and so they're having a gay old time, yammering away and talking up each other. And so the build-up begins to the trial because Tim has run out of options. The trial's going to happen on the 26th. He's not going to be delayed. He tried to delay it twice beyond the 26th, and the judge said, nope. You know, this has gone on long enough. This is a misdemeanor. This is not even a felony we're talking about here. This is a routine misdemeanor. You wouldn't leave the lady alone. You're going to go to jail for 6 months, and then if you don't learn your lesson, the next trial that comes up, you're going to get even longer. You're stupid enough not to leave the window alone. I would say yes to that. I think everybody's getting paid to believe because there's money in it. It's like I said in my blogs. You can go out and you can start one of these things up, and if you say you're a QAnon and you think that Donald Trump is being attacked by the deep state and all this, and you put up a Patreon thing, you're going to make a fortune. So, that's basically what it is. You're paid to believe that, and these people suck in this money like a vacuum cleaner. And of course, Homeseth decided he was going to cash in on this, and he probably did there for a while. Because Field McConnell recognized, we've got a little bit of a cash cow here. We can use all this attention that's been paid to Timothy Charles Homeseth to, line our coffers a little bit. So Homeseth comes in, he's on the air, and they got this big crusade, and they managed to get about 30 people with their little signs out in front of the courthouse and created all kinds of shit. So there you go. You've got all this stuff going on. But anyhow, getting back, apparently somebody had gotten a hold of Homeseth about a week before the trial and had a conversation. And so that's what started all this thing about everybody was going to show up, and they were arguing about this Admiralty court and how the court systems are banks and all this. And I had a hard time following what these people were getting at. It made absolutely no sense. And so, Kim was a material witness. She flew up there with a legal assistant to say her piece, and then, so she had to take time off her business that she's running down here in Florida. She's an attorney. She's got a docket full of cases. She's got a business to run, yet she's got to go away from all that, fly halfway across the country to sit down and testify against some jerk that won't leave her alone. You got a business that's generating $2,500 a day. She probably lost $4,000 or $5,000 on top of the cost for going up there and trying to get this guy to leave her alone. So she goes up. Everybody goes up there. 8:30 in the morning comes. No Tim. 9 o'clock in the morning comes. No Tim. 9:30 in the morning comes. No Tim. Finally, by around 11 o'clock in the morning, the judge has had enough, and the bench warrant goes out. And so all these people standing out in front wasted all their time to come over there to support Tim. He just decided to fly the coop. And so that's where we are today. Timmy Holmseth is on the lam somewhere. Rumor has it that he's about 200 miles southeast of Cookstown in a nice house with a professional couple. Not having, not an expense in the world. He's just, he's got 3 squares and a bed. And as long as he stays put, he could stay out of jail indefinitely. See, the thing people don't understand, what Timmy is charged with is a misdemeanor. He's not charged with a felony yet. That may come at a later time. But the misdemeanor is basically considered the bottom of the ladder. This particular charge is a little bit above a traffic charge, like you get a speeding ticket or something like that. And because of the nature, and it's one of these, because it's his second time of being caught doing the same thing, he probably would have gotten a longer sentence, 6 months maybe or something. The first I think was 90 days. Now he was looking at 6 months. So, for whatever reason, Tim either decided on his own or, more likely, was talked into by outside parties to jump ship and go on the lam. And so he's got a bench warrant out there. The bench warrant says that if he's found anywhere in the state, Minnesota, arrest his ass and bring him back to the court, because this is a state court. It's when you look at the warrant, it's the state of Minnesota versus Timothy Holmseth. It's not Polk County. It's not the city of Cookstown. It's the state of Minnesota. This is a state court. It's an offense that is under the state statutes. So, as long as Timothy Holmseth stays within the state line of Minnesota, he risks getting arrested. Now, this brings us up to this little mystery caller business. And now, this is probably the stupidest thing I've ever heard on social media. Number one, if this was a act, it wasn't very well rehearsed. It was extremely sloppy. And so, in the middle of Phil McConnell's show, the first call, here comes our mystery caller. And McConnell says, you sound like this, you sound like that. And I have a communications background. There's more to me than being a truck driver, I'll say that much. But I know a lot about telecommunications. And the one thing I know is that there is no gadget like the one that Phil McConnell talked about anywhere. Not even close. This geo-scanner or whatever the crap it is, it doesn't exist. And you certainly are not going to have one in your house. And now geolocation is done, but it is done by law enforcement, and law enforcement simply gets the proper legal authorization through a court, usually through a search warrant, and then geolocation is done by the carrier. It's not done by the law enforcement. It is done by order of the law enforcement. Usually they've got a representative law enforcement at the facility where this is done, but it is done by the carrier. They have a unique equipment that is able to ping the phone if it's on and geolocate it. And they do this by triangulation off cell towers. They don't do it with the GPS in the phone. That's a separate system entirely. As a matter of fact, it's what your smartphone has is technically not a GPS. What it is doing is that it is doing geolocation through the use of the cell towers, triangulating back to the carrier. This gets fed into software that's on your phone, and that's what gives you your location. It's your telephone is not running around picking up satellites like your GPS in your car is doing. That's a totally different thing. Everything, when you are doing the thing in your car where the lady's telling you where to go and it's coming in your telephone, you're basically using the carrier's cell phone tower system to guide you around. That's why the system doesn't work very good when you're out of cell phone range. It'll basically crap out on you when you're driving down the road. All of a sudden you're not going anywhere. So that's how that works. And so, this goes on and on and on about, okay, you're the mystery caller and you're under the protection of the Navy SEALs was the first thing. Then they said the Marines. And then we've got the Secret Service and the United States Marshals. Well, the PayPal is an option to a point. See, I don't know how much you know about how PayPal works, but in order for you to use PayPal, you have to have a bank or some institutional account. Because the first thing PayPal is going to ask you when you set up the account is, who do you bank through? Because what happens with PayPal, when somebody, I do a lot of buying on eBay and on Amazon, so I've got PayPal. And all PayPal is it's a third-party agent. They'll take your money, they put it into escrow until the person at the other end fulfills their obligation, and once the obligation is released, they give the money to you. Or if you file a dispute through PayPal saying this guy screwed me out of my money, PayPal will refund you the money and they'll go back to the person that you paid and get the money back, because his money's held in escrow as well. So that's what it's there. The PayPal came about so people didn't get screwed with online shopping. But in order for you to have a PayPal account, you have got to have some kind of a bank account, whether it's online bank or your home bank. In my case, it's my bank here in Apopka. And if you do not have a bank, you don't have PayPal, because there's no way to give you the money. It's got to go through a financial institution. And Patreon works the same way. So all law enforcement have to do, if they want to, is to subpoena PayPal and find out the bank or financial institution where Homeseth has his money, then go to that financial institution, yank out all his credit card statements as to where the money's been going, and if he's buying gasolines in Elk River, Minnesota, that receipt's going to come up on the bank statement, and they're going to know that Tim Homeseth bought gas in Elk River, Minnesota. So that's why and that's why PayPal or Patreon or any of these other services is not, you're not going to be able to go to these institutions and say, hey, I'm going to buy some cocaine, pay me with PayPal, and I'll send you the cocaine, because the first thing the feds are going to do is subpoena PayPal and the federal institution, find out where the money went, and they're going to meet you with a free set of bracelets, and you're going to get 3 squares and a cot by the time it's all done. Now, Bitcoin's a different animal. The reason Bitcoin and these other cryptocurrencies or virtual currencies were created is to make it so that the funds are not traceable. So if he wanted to go dark, he would have people buy Bitcoins. Give himself a Bitcoin account, buy Bitcoins. Then he would be able to withdraw the Bitcoins, convert them into cash somehow, and be untraceable. Now, I don't know how he's going to do that, because at some point, if you're going to go down to 7-Eleven and buy a gallon of milk, you're not going to do it with a Bitcoin, because even if the institution accepts Bitcoins, they have to account where that money goes. If they put that in the bank, they're going to say, where'd this come from? Oh, this pizza delivery dude came and paid for a gallon of milk with these Bitcoins. And they're going to say, you know where he lives? And I say, yeah, he lives 2 blocks up the street. And I say, oh, we got a bench warrant out on that guy. We'll go and pick him up. So that's not going to work. And you see, this is the problem the Home Seth has. It doesn't matter how much money he gets. The minute he draws that money out, they're going to know where he's at. Now, whether or not somebody's going to start doing a check on his credit and say, okay, where's the money from PayPal going? Because that costs money. But eventually somebody's going to do it, and they're going to say, where the hell is this guy? I say, let's get a court order from PayPal for that information. PayPal's going to have to send the information. Then they're going to go to the bank that Home Seth used to open the account, and they're going to ask the bank for a bank statement. They're going to say, where's this guy been spending his money and getting his money from? And it's going to show up. And they're going to go, So I make this suggestion to anybody out there that's listening to this now, or listen to it later. If you buy something on eBay or Amazon or any of these other online services, and you're using PayPal, go to your bank statement and look, and you're going to see PayPal. And bold, it's going to be right there, PayPal. It's not going to be Amazon. Or Amazon will send you a receipt or something. But anything you do with PayPal is going to show up in your bank statement. And that's how that's how they would nail Timothy Home Seth. And that's also how they're going to get these people that are operating these blogs and websites, YouTube channels, and so forth, is they're going to track down all their bank statements. Now, this brings me to another point that I don't think Phil McConnell understands, or doesn't want to understand, or all these other people that operate these monetized systems. If you are getting income from any of these places, you're subject to federal income tax unless you have taken the correct steps to register yourself as a not-for-profit or a non-profit organization. There's a distinction between the two. Non-profit usually is a church, or what Phil McConnell claims to be a child advocacy. I ain't even going to try that. I mangle that word for some reason. I used to be able to pronounce this crap. But Phil McConnell's in this thing where he's got this worldwide organization. He supposedly helps kids with this children's crusade. And, oh, thank you. But he has to register, if he's operating in the United States, as a 501c3. That is a non-profit organization. And every quarter, he has to file a statement to the Internal Revenue Service showing the gross amount of money he brought in and where that money went. He doesn't have to pay taxes on it, but he has to account for every penny of that. Because this is what happens. Now, you've got the Salvation Army. Salvation Army is what's known as a non-profit organization. They take in millions and millions and millions of dollars. But there are people that don't work for the Salvation Army for free. They get paid. And they get paid big. If you go and the CEO of the Salvation Army gets paid, I don't know, some phenomenal amount of money, and it's in the millions of dollars. And then everybody from there on down gets paid. The IRS has to know all that, because the CEO of the Salvation Army or Goodwill, they're not exempt. Their salaries aren't exempt. They're getting income. They have to pay their income tax, their Social Security, all that stuff, plus their state income tax, depending on where they live, has to come out of their salary. They're not, they're working for their, they're making their $500,000 a year as their individual profit. When you work for somebody, you're an employee, but you're making a profit. You're making that $8 an hour or $12 an hour or whatever. So you got to pay income tax on that. So that's what you have to. You usually have to register as another thing he has to do is, especially if he were to do it here in Florida, he has to register the name, the Children's Crusade, as something. Limited Liability Corporation or something. Church. He has to account to the state and federal government what it is he's operating. Is he operating a charity? Is he operating a church? What is it? Now, so that's a not-for-profit. You're a charity, essentially. A non-profit organization is something like the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, the YMCA, and say the Elk Society, the Loyal Order, the Moose, what you call fraternal organizations. These are what are considered not-for-profit. And I can't remember the number that they fall under on the IRS. It's a 501, but it's a different thing. They have different paperwork that they have to file, because they basically they're the same thing as a charity, but they're not dispensing charitable funds. In other words, you're not donating $1 million to the Loyal Order of Moose, and then the Loyal Order of Moose has got to turn around and account for all this money. Fraternal organizations usually operate on a dues system. If you join the fraternal organization, you pay so much a year. You turn around and go, you buy booze, you get drunk, you go to parties, go to barbecues, you dance, you do all the stuff that they do at these different places. You hang out. And sometimes they will do things like the VFW has various funds that are set up, and stuff like that. They're a not-for-profit, although they do donate certain things. But this is the Boy Scouts is something entirely different, and so is the YMCA. These are considered non-profit organizations. You could go out and you could start a ham radio club where you go out and you buy a clubhouse, and you have a place where everybody can meet, and they can maybe 20 members of the organization can operate this one ham radio station. Another non-profit organization is a place down in northwest Orange County, Florida. It's a place where people can fly their drones and their radio-controlled aircraft, and you pay so much a year, and you go through a qualifying thing to show you know how to operate the equipment to where you won't kill somebody with your model airplane or your drone, and you can fly this thing around. And that's a non-profit organization. The money that you pay pays for the operating costs of that business. And so that's how that works. Tiring, two people ran away. Sorry about that. So that's how that works. So, Field McConnell, I checked with the Internal Revenue Service. I checked with the state of Wisconsin, where he lives. And I've checked with various countries throughout the world. The Children's Crusade as an entity doesn't exist. It's on a website, but it doesn't exist. So Phil McConnell's getting all this money. We don't know how much he's getting, but he's getting money. And we have no idea where it's going. I mean, does Phil McConnell pay himself a salary? How does Phil McConnell pay for that hearse he drives around? That thing sucks gas like a cow during a drought. And so where's the financial statement? Now, one thing that I noticed, if you ever look at the background of the studio, if you want to call it that Field McConnell uses, up in the upper left-hand corner is a drawing of a house. Now, it turns out that's the house that, according to what's been said on the streams that he does, that he is being foreclosed upon. And he even went on a rant where he's complaining that the bank is going to take away this house. Now, I don't know how this came. I have not heard yet the details of how this house got foreclosed on, but it's getting foreclosed on. So there's that. But this is a guy that used to be an airplane pilot. And he's a pilot for United Airlines. And he was also in the military. Now, there's two things here. Generally, if you've been in the military and you come out of the military, depending on how long you served, there's benefits that you get, veterans benefits, and if you stay in like 20 years or something like that, you get a pension, military pension. Also, because of his age, he's qualified. He's as close to the same age as I am, so he can get his Social Security, and he can get it in full Social Security. There's none of this. You get, if you wait until a certain age, you get 80%. You can get the whole shebang, 100%. If you waited until you're 66 years old, you can get every dime of your Social Security. That's a pretty good amount of money. And it's based on a percentage of your salary to a maximum amount. So he's got Social Security coming in. He's got his military benefits coming in. And then there's the Airline Pilots Association and the union under United Airlines. Now, as it happens, because of something I'm doing, I have close ties with 6 different airlines. And I spent a lot of time over the past couple of weeks talking to pilots. And the first thing I asked them, I said, all right, you guys have to retire, 60 years old? That's like the federal law or something. And I said, what happens when you retire? I said, you just go out the door and you're broke on day 2. Because these are guys that are making $100,000 a year, some of them. The big airlines like United, American, Southwest, JetBlue, and so on and so forth. You're kicking down about $100,000 a year. They say, no, we got a pension. We got a union thing. We've got our, you get your financial planning thing where you pay in. There's So usually, if you come out, if you stay there a certain number of years and you come out of the airline and retire, you're going to make you're going to make a decent amount of money. So now, on top of the Social Security, something from the military, depending on how long he's in, and at the very least he's got veterans benefits, and now he's got a pension from a major airline, and it's either full salary or damn close to it. And on top of that, I understand he's got a job. I mean, it doesn't pay a lot. I think he works for Goodwill. But this guy's making a pretty decent amount of money. So how did he get to the point where his house is getting foreclosed on? Now his wife, I don't know if she works or not. I don't know. We haven't gotten that far. So what's going on here? Why is this guy broke? Or is he broke? And now the strange thing, I've done all kinds of research on how to make money on the internet with these various blogs, monetized YouTube channels, and so on. There's maybe 10 million videos out there by these guys that'll teach you how to make money on the internet. And the thing of it is the rate structure that is in place for being on YouTube and all these other things. It takes a lot of work. This guy's on the air, I think like 3 times a week, 2 times a week, and then he does he's got 2 different services he's on, and so on, in his little empire, and then he sells crap. And so then, of course, you've got the donations. So, and it's just that because of the pressure you're under to raise that kind of money through the internet, you have to cut some corners. And I think the corners he's cutting is he's not paying the IRS for the money he's making off his blog and his streaming. And so if the IRS ever does an audit, they're going to want to know where the hell all this money's going. Number one, they're going to know what's coming in, and they're going to want to know where it went so that they can account for the money. And if he's paying himself a salary, he's got to pay income tax on that. And the same goes for Timothy Holmseth. Timothy Holmseth has to file income tax. Even if he doesn't make any money, he's still got to file income tax in order to get his Social Security. So that's another thing. Tim Holmseth, because of his circumstances, qualifies for certain government benefits. And in order to get those benefits, he's got to have, in some cases, he's got to have a place to live. If you go from one state to another, your Social Security, for instance, the rate changes if he's on disability or anything like that. Now, he was on government-assisted housing when he left Minnesota, or left Cookstown. He was over in the city he was living in. He was on assisted housing. They pay a percentage of your rent depending on your individual circumstances, the money you make, whether or not you have children, all kinds of things factor in. And I found it kind of interesting that a single male with no child living in a house was on Section 8. That's hard to do. But he figured out a way to do it. So he was on Section 8 for that. He lost all that when he went on the road. Now, another problem that Timmy Holmseth has is June 17. He was born in June 17th. Now, the state of Minnesota has a birthday renewal on your driver's license. In other words, on the day of your birthday, you have to register, you have to renew your driver's license. So, Tim Holmseth has got until June 17th, 2020 to renew his driver's license. Same goes for his car. Now, what I don't know with Minnesota is what they base the renewal of the car on. Is it based on the birthday, or based on the birth month of the individual like it is here in Florida, or is it based on when you license the car? You know, like if you bought the car in January of 2000 whatever, then you license the car every January. But the point of it is, there's going to come a time when he's got to register the car, if he still has it. You know, plus the fact this car's out there somewhere. All a cop has to do is run a plate and say, oh, this is registered to Timmy J. Charles Homestead. This is the guy they're looking for. And then they just find a probable cause to bring him in. If he runs a stop sign, does any kind of moving violation, the minute they're going to say, need your license and registration, please, and your driver's license. Run that through the computer. They got him. And that brings me to one additional thing that happened here with Tim Holmseth. Tim Holmseth was going to court one day. Did a video about this. He gets maybe a block from his house. All of a sudden, the beacons on the car go, blee! Gets pulled over. Need your license, registration, and driver's license. What'd I do, officer? So I'll tell you in a minute. Cop takes all this stuff, goes to his car. Tim sitting there huffing and puffing about being pulled over. Says, I gotta get to court. This guy's gonna be me late for court, and I'm gonna get arrested. Wow, 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 wow. So, cop comes back. Says, you drove by me back there. You didn't have your seatbelt on. And so this conversation went back and forth. And so Timmy got a ticket for not wearing a seatbelt. Now, guess what happens if Timothy Homestead's driving around? He's got a lot on his mind. Maybe he's got to get ready for the mystery caller to field McConnell or something, and isn't paying attention. He blows the stop sign. Or he pulls out of the driveway of the house where he's at, and he forgets to put on his seatbelt. And he's driving along, and next thing you know, he gets the beacons in the back. It's a cop. Cop pulls him over. He says, driver's license, registration, and insurance. Cop says, I'll be right back. Cop walks to his car, does a little check. Guess what? Timothy's got a warrant for his arrest in the state of Minnesota. Timothy's in the state of Minnesota. Cop walks back to Timmy's car. Sir, I need you to step out of the car, please. And, of course, Timmy's going to sit there and blush. He says, what's the problem? I say, sir, you got a bench warrant out. You didn't appear in court. I said, I have to place you under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. You have a right to an attorney. If you can't afford an attorney will be appointed for you without charge. You have a right to this, that, and the other thing. You understand your rights as I've told you? And Graham goes, yeah. Say, all right, turn around, put your hands behind your back. Off he goes. Call a tow truck for the car. The car goes in one direction. He gets in the back seat of a patrol car, and he goes in the other direction. So Timmy's off to the hooskow. That's how they're going to get him. It's going to be a traffic infraction, or he's going to do something stupid, and they're going to call the cops. Maybe the people he's at decides he's too much of a problem. They say, Timmy, you got to leave. Timmy ain't going to leave. He says, look, I can't go anywhere. You know, I don't have a place to live. My car, you know, when I came down here, my car's shot. I can't drive the car. No insurance or whatever. Say, well, we don't care. I say, you're just time for you to go. You gotta go. Tim ain't going. So, well, I ain't going. I said, okay. Beep, bop, 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 beep. Mr. Policeman. Yeah. Could you come over here to 1313 13th Street? Pick this dude up. He won't leave. They got a bench warrant out for him in Cookstown, Minnesota for failing to appear in court. Be right there. Brand the warning gets read. Tim gets his little bracelets, and off he goes. That's one of the ways they're going to go. Oh, and one other thing, and kind of went over my head here when I was talking about the other scenarios. Minnesota requires you to have insurance in order to operate a motor vehicle. Matter of fact, it's like every other state that I know of. If you don't pay for your insurance, you have to turn your license tag in. You can't drive the car without a license. They notify the state. They say, hey, guess what? This dude didn't pay his insurance. We revoked his insurance. He's driving around in an uninsured car. He has not turned in his license. He hasn't turned in his tag. They say, okay, we'll keep an eye out for him. Timmy's driving down the road, or his car's sitting in somebody's driveway. The cop has one of these little apps on his computer strapped to the passenger side of his seat, and he goes click, 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 puts in the tag number of the car. Uninsured motor vehicle. Then I go and knock on the door of the house to say, is Mr. Homestead here? I say, why? Because that car outside doesn't have any insurance on it. I said, either you produce Mr. Homestead, or we're going to give you a ticket for having an uninsured motor vehicle parked in your driveway. And so Mr. Homestead is going to get hauled off that way. You know, we live in an age where there's a lot of things that we have to do. Driver's license, motor vehicle registration, car insurance, income tax, Social Security, application for subsidies, banks, all kinds of stuff. One or more of these things is gonna trip Homestead off, and he's gonna get arrested. It's just a matter of time. You know, somewhere out there right now, Tim Homestead is, well, 10 o'clock at night, he's probably surfing the web, using an alias, using the name of the people he's with. You know, check and see what's going on. He could even be one of the people on this webcast. Or he might check on this later on. So this little message goes to Mr. Homestead. Timmy, you've listened to my webcast. You can do your research. But we live in an information age. And it's very hard to go to point A to point B and go off the grid. Can't be done. At some point, you're going to screw up and you're going to get caught. Best thing you could do is find a way back to Crookston, Minnesota, walk into the Polk County Sheriff's Office, turn yourself in, beg for mercy, and do your time. Get this one out of your way. You've got 2 more. Get them out of your way. Once you serve all your jail sentences, get a job, get the freak off the internet, and leave people alone. All you got to do. I mean, you're probably got about 2 years of hell to go through with all the jails and the trials and taking and dismantling all this stuff. But once it's done, you've got a clean slate. You can go live with mom and dad. You can go down and live with your daughter. You can go out and get yourself a minimum wage job somewhere, get back on subsidized housing, live a long and fruitful life. But get away from the conspiracy theories, get away from Field McConnell and all these other idiots, and just go on your merry way. Because all you are, you're just an average Joe, just like me, and just like everybody else out there. You're not going to solve the Haley Cummings case sitting in a bedroom of somebody that's taking you in. It ain't happening. You don't have the resources. You have no special training. You're not affiliated with law enforcement. As a matter of fact, you're hated by just about every law enforcement agency in the United States and Canada. And believe me, I know about the shit you've been doing up in Canada. So you might as well just hang up your spurs and go live your life out as a virtual unknown. Because if you keep going the way you are, you're going to make things worse. You're going to make it worse for yourself. You're going to make it worse for your family. You're going to make it worse for your grandchild, who I guarantee you're not going to be able to see if this keeps up, because at some point, people are going to get fed up. I don't know why your family, your sister, your mother, your father, your daughter, or whoever, can't talk some sense into you and say, look, enough already. Go to jail, get it done, we'll take you in, we'll help you out. But this way you can be surrounded by family and those that love you instead of strangers who could turn on you in a hot minute and throw you on the street. I said, people are making money off of you. You don't know how much money is coming in to PayPal or any of these others. There could be $100 coming in and you wind up getting 10. How do you audit Field McConnell and all these other people who are sending money? If it's coming to Field McConnell first before it comes to you, then you've lost control. And also another thing, you're on the lam. You're not writing on your blogs. You're not writing on Twitter or Facebook. You're not posting on your website. You're not doing any videos. You do a couple mystery calls, but that limits your exposure. Nobody but this puny little group of maybe 100, maybe 1,000 people listen to your malarkey. The United States alone has 325 million people in it. The world population is anywhere from 3 to 6 billion people. So if all you're getting to is 1, 2, 3, even if you're getting to 10,000 people, that's a drop in the bucket. It's not going to do crap. More people will sit there and watch a squirrel twerk on YouTube than they'll watch your videos. More people will watch a cat running around in circles chasing a laser than watching your crap. More people will watch a webcam where a boat is going down a canal, or watch a train on live cam go down a set of railroad tracks, then will listen to your crap. We live in a society where a cat running around in circles chasing a laser is more important than you or me or any other blogger or webcaster on the internet. We're nothing. You're nothing. I'm nothing. Field is nothing. All the rest of us are nothing. We can't compete with a cat and a laser. We can't compete with a squirrel dancing in circles on a fence. We can't compete with, you name it. There are a million people that'll sit there and watch you play a video game. You're not playing the game, you're watching somebody else play it. Somebody sitting there playing one of these war games where they shoot the tanks and stuff. You're not doing that, they're doing it. You're just watching them do it. And in some cases you're paying $10 a month for the privilege of watching these people play video games. So you're not accomplishing anything. You're not going to find Haley Cummings getting on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter or Field McConnell's call-in show and come up with all these theories, because people don't care. They'll listen to you maybe for entertainment, for amusement. Some of them are going to send you money because they believe in what you're doing, but in the end it's not going to count. You've been at this for 10 years and it's gotten you nowhere. Absolutely, positively nowhere. You have not budged the case 1 inch. You make stuff up. You say, okay, this is the Navy SEALs that's protecting me. I'm working with Donald J. Trump. Field McConnell puts up this obviously fake picture of Donald Trump and all these other people up at a church meeting the day before, or this hotel room the day before you and all your friends met, or before your friends met. You weren't there. Everybody had this big party in your honor and you didn't even bother to show up. And the very day they put that up, President of the United States was 6,000 miles away. He wasn't even in the United States. It was an obviously fake picture. You got some dead guy down in the bottom right-hand corner. The guy's obviously dead. They're going around saying he's alive. The guy's not alive. He's dead. The coroner's office in the state where they examined his body, took pictures of him. You know, so if necessary, you know, they didn't go to court, say, here he is. The guy's dead on the doornail. So it's, you know, you can sit there, you know, and I really don't understand. I honestly don't. All the people out there that believe this crap. That believe in Pizzagate, that believe in Pedogate, and this gate, and that gate. I mean, you know, and here's the thing. The attorney that hired Timothy Charles Homeseth was referred to a guy that called into Breitbart and said that there is a child sex abuse colony on Mars. And this idiotic hoax got so bad that the National Aeronautics and Space Administration had to come out and debunk it. Because people don't think. They figure, how in the hell are they going to get all these kids up there? You know, where'd the rocket come from? I mean, did somebody take all these kids over to Area 51 one night and when nobody was looking, off they went? And so we got all these satellites running around taking pictures of every square inch of Mars, and nobody spotted any buildings. So apparently they said, okay, when we get to Mars, we got to wait until the satellite passes, and then we're going to swoop in, unload 100 kids, get them into a cave somewhere, and hide this big-ass spaceship we got before the satellite comes back around and catches us. Yeah, right. Now give me a freaking break. We got ham radio operators that can spot, that pinpoints where a Tesla convertible is at any given time. They can ping off with their homemade radar. You think they're going to spot a spaceship that's big enough to haul 100 kids to Mars? Jeez. But, you know, people are going to believe what they want. But I'll tell you this, Mr. Homeseth, you're going to lose a little attention tonight. Yes, I've been writing ever since the day you decided to go poofy from the court. I've been writing blogs about you. But the blog stopped yesterday. Stop writing the blogs about you. I said, I've had enough. No more blogs. Today, I'm done. From this day forward, unless your ass is caught, or your body is found with a cinder block around its ankle down on the bottom of one of those 1,000 lakes up there, or something else happens to where it's verified that it's your physical presence somewhere, I'm done. No more blogs. No more YouTube. Nothing. You're probably happy about that because you know I'm not your fan club. So I'm not gonna say anything good about you. But there's other people who are gonna get tired of you. Just Phil McConnell, there's gonna become a day where he says, I'm not making any money off this guy. They're forgetting about him. I've got all these other conspiracy theories I've got to work on, so he's going to drop you like a lead balloon. Yeah, there'll be some other person come along that he's going to start supporting, or some hoax that he's going to come up with that, you know, this one of the gang of 5 or whoever these women are with the Democrats, he's going to go after them. You know, we got an election coming up, 2020. So people are going to be concentrating on Donald Trump. They're going to be concentrating on all the stuff that's going on. We got the Democrats and the Republicans are going to tear each other apart. We got the Libertarians in there with their own 2 cents. They don't like either one of you. So they're going to be in there. I've already been talking to Libertarians. I'm close to a Libertarian myself. But, you know, I still, you know, that's a whole different subject. But, you know, you're old news. You're stale. You're nothing. You're yesterday's newspaper. Yeah, so you can sit there and you can say, I know all this, that, and the other thing, and you can make all your phone calls and send all your emails, and they're going to wind up in the virtual trash basket. Somebody's going to hit delete on the computer. The cops are going to throw you in the trash can, put you in pile 13. They're going to forget about you. They don't care. And you may have 1,000 people today. Next week it's going to be 500. Week after that it'll drop to 100. Week after that it'll drop to 10. And you may have maybe 10 or 15 people And you know what? All they, in the 10 years, Mr. Holmes said, that I have asked you to leave me alone and to quit calling me a pedophile and to mind your own goddamn business. I've only gotten 5 people on any of my webcasts. I've got maybe 10 people that read my blogs. 10 people. You took me to court, accused me of all kinds of gaslighting and all this other crap because 10 people read my blog. You know how pathetic that is? You're afraid of 10 people. Right now, as I'm making this virtual talking to you, I've got 3 people watching my webcast, and one of them is me, because I've got a monitor up here to make sure my stream is going on. So that means that there are 2 people watching this webcast. I don't know who the 2 people are, but that's it. That's all I've got. People knew for 5 days I was going to be on the air talking about you, and they don't care. They don't care about you. Maybe Montague, they're interested in you because Montague, number one, he has a built-in audience. They've known the problem that he has had with you over the years, and he's got all the documents. He's got 172 pages of court documents that he has read, and it's up there for everybody to read. And so people are going to start reading the court documents, and they're going to say, hey, this guy's crazy. This guy's lied. This guy has tormented this woman and her family for a decade, plus anyone that's even remotely connected to her, including me. And they're going to abandon you. They're going to send you off into the woods. And you're just going to become an asterisk, a pebble in the sand on the internet. So you absorb all that, Mr. Holmes, Seth, wherever you may be tonight, if you're still alive. Because you're done. You're over with. Go, like I said, get yourself a job, take a bath, get a haircut, get some clean clothes. If you're going to be a janitor, if you're able to get a car and deliver pizzas again, or something, make enough money to get yourself an apartment, get yourself to where you can eat 3 squares a day, maybe get yourself a little TV set, you can watch TV, just relax, retire, live your life out, leave people the hell alone. Now look, you've got a grandson somewhere, you got a son somewhere, you got a daughter somewhere. Go visit, go live with them, give them your time. Your mother and father are getting old. Give them time. But get the hell off the internet. Get away from all this conspiracy shit, because you're not going anywhere. Because as of right now, this moment, on this webcast, I'm forgetting about you. I'm not talking about you anymore. I'm not going to write about you anymore. You're history. So with that I say, good riddance, good night, and good luck. This is William K. Murtaugh, aka Mert Witness 1. Until later, you all have a good night. Bye-bye.